The impact of the parental narcissist. A parental narcissist will impact upon a child or children throughout their lives in a variety of ways, because a child is usually a non-intimate secondary source within the narcissist's fuel matrix. Sometimes a child can be a non-intimate partner primary source within a narcissist's fuel matrix, and in instances of incest or sexual abuse, an intimate partner secondary source, even an intimate partner primary source, although those instances are much rarer. Accordingly, any child of a narcissist, whether in minority or having reached majority, i.e. an adult, remains part of that fuel matrix and therefore is susceptible to the manipulations of the parental narcissist in pursuit of the prime aims. The nature of those manipulations varies vastly, from insulting a child, physically assaulting the child, interfering in the child's life with regard to their relationships with friends, girlfriend, spouse, interfering in the children of the child, making decisions for them, denying them access to information, failing to provide financial support. There's a vast array of impacts that can occur through the various manipulations. And the purpose of this video isn't to describe all the various manipulations that a parental narcissist engages in. What it does is addresses 15 different types of impact that a parental narcissist has upon a child of minority age, i.e. the formative years of 0 to 9 for that particular child that is subjected to the behaviours of a parental narcissist. The behaviour of the parental narcissist will vary, but will always be driven by an absence of emotional empathy towards that child and the pursuit of the prime aims of fuel and control, character traits, and residual benefits. If you query whether an adult narcissist loves a child, go to the video, Do Narcissists Love Their Children? This video explains 15 of the most common impacts that a parental narcissist will have upon a young child. Number 1, the child becomes a narcissist. If that child has a genetic predisposition towards narcissism, a strong possibility because they have a parent who is a narcissist, and they are subjected to a lack of control environment, also a strong possibility because there is a parental narcissist nearby, then there is the possibility that the child will develop into a narcissist. This is not a foregone conclusion. The genetic component might be missing, or there might be an intervener with regard to the lack of control environment. This is something that I explain in greater detail in the video, What Makes a Narcissist, and I'd encourage you to listen to that also. But one of the impacts that a parental narcissist will have upon a child is to create another narcissist. Number 2, the child becomes an empath. For the purposes of the narcissistic dynamic, I categorize people into 4 general behavioral groups: the narcissists, narcissistic people, but they're not narcissists, the largest group, the normals, and then the empaths. An empath can be formed without the involvement of a narcissist, but often they arise because of the influence of a narcissist, and particular specific types of school and cadre arise because of the exposure to the narcissist and the period of exposure also. The child does not become a narcissist because either the genetic component is missing or there has been an intervening factor, which means the lack of control environment does not impact upon the child in the same way. But one of the outcomes of a parental narcissist is an increased possibility that the child becomes an empath. Number 3, love is a commodity that is used to control the child. Narcissists do not love. We have no emotional empathy and therefore we are incapable of it. However, a child does not realize this, and certain narcissists give the impression of loving through cognitive empathy. However, they will use that, because of their absence of emotional empathy, as a reward, as a prize for the obedience of the child. Love is used to control. Love is a taught construct and is utilized as a means to punish the withdrawal of the apparent love or to reward the granting of this apparent love to the child. Rather than it be given in an unconditional way, which is a hallmark of emotional empathy towards a child, and it being the genuine, proper love predicated on emotional empathy, what a child receives, if they receive it at all, is a manifestation of love. And therefore, the compliments, the flattery, the hugs, the care, the praise, the assistance that is born out of the cognitive empathy that the narcissist demonstrates not only isn't genuine, but is used as a commodity to control the child. And therefore this impacts upon the child with regard to their well-being and also their formation of their own behaviours as an adult. It impacts upon how they regard love and how they respond to love. Number 4, the child's worldview is shaped by a diet of lies. Narcissists lie repeatedly, but not all of the time. There are occasions when your truth accords with what is appropriate for us, and therefore we utilize it. And therefore it is incorrect to say that narcissists lie all of the time, but lies are often used. And remember that when it's a lesser or mid-range narcissist, the lies that they tell, they don't realize are lies. They are their own truth. The greater or the ultra know that lies are being told. The worldview of the child becomes shaped by this diet of lies. It creates insecurity, shifting sands, because the lie is a flexible tool. Something is black in the morning, becomes orange by midday, and then is yellow by afternoon, and it never was orange or black. This results in confusion, insecurity, a lack of certainty, all making that child, of course, easier to control, but then impacts upon the child with regard to their own world view. For many, it results in a greater reliance upon the appearance of truth as an adult, a paranoia with regard to being lied to, particular issues with regard to trust, because of the lies that they've been told, and when they eventually break through the wall of lies, what they find on the other side is such that thereafter trust, honesty, the lack of lies become hugely fundamental to them. Moreover, the imposition of a lie upon them as an adult has a greater impact upon them were it upon an adult who had not been brought up with this diet of lies. Number 5, the imposition of perfection. The child is expected to be perfect, not a hair out of place. Homework is immaculately written up, 10 out of 10 on spelling tests, to sit there and be seen and not heard, never interrupting. Essentially, expected to be a compliant robot. Remember, the child is as much an object to the narcissist as any other individual in the fuel matrix, and because a child is easier to control by virtue of them being physically weaker and reliant upon a parental narcissist, the child is forced into the imposition of perfection. This can then manifest with regard to particular behaviours as an adult, always striving to please people. The imposition of perfection is often a contributor to the martyr cadre, meaning that, should the individual become an empath, they will have the martyr cadre and in significant quantities and above, meaning that they will self-flagellate in order to go the extra mile to achieve particular things, to ensure that everything is perfect. and that if things are out of place, that impacts upon the adult, who is the child of a narcissist, in a way which causes them discomfort, uncertainty. Their environment is affected adversely because of this ever-present need during their formative years to be perfect. This, of course, is because the narcissist lacks emotional empathy to allow the child to be a child, but also the acquisition of the character traits. And seeing the child as an extension of him or herself means the parental narcissist that operates a facade subsumes the child within that facade, causing them to be the outward image of perfection, to reflect well upon the narcissist. Number 6, parenting the parent. It is common for a parental narcissist to divest themselves of the accountability to rearing the child. Not all will do so, because of the needs of the facade result in the parental narcissist attending to key things such as feeding, clothing, keeping warm, educating, disciplining the child. But in some instances, it becomes a case, particularly with those of the victim cadre, that the hopeless and helpless parental narcissist relies upon the child to look after them. Injuries are invented, and this leads, of course, into situations of the parental narcissist faking illness in order to control the child, so that the child ends up parenting their parent by arranging doctor's appointments, caring for the supposedly sick and bedridden parent, having to not only attend to themselves but attend to the parent. The issue of ill health, infirmity and injury is used by parental narcissists, and rather than soldiering on and seeking help, or at least looking after themselves as an adult would do, they expect the child and treat them as a servant or a minion, running around after the either genuine needs, where there is illness or infirmity, or more usually an exaggerated or even invented illness or injury, which is then used to elicit sympathy from the child and the caring of that child. Injury and illness also result in the impact of the parental narcissist utilizing fake illnesses and injuries, or even causing them in a child for the purposes of asserting control over the child and other people. And this is commonly Munchausen syndrome by proxy. This is an expansive topic, and rather than deal with it here with regard to the impact of the parental narcissist, I'll be covering that issue separately, as it is an important and interesting one. Number 7. Childhood is denied to the child. Following on from the point made about parenting the parent, the child doesn't get a childhood. They're turned into a slave, a minion, a servant, a workhorse, a carer to the parent, and therefore they are denied the opportunity to grow in a particular direction, to explore the world on their own terms, to perhaps even interact with other children, always having to attend to adult needs ahead of their own. And that impacts upon not only that child's happiness, but also the imposition of the carrier trait should they become an empath. Always soldiering on, sucking matters up, tending to the needs of others, shouldering the burden. Number 8. The child is bred on contempt. Narcissists are contemptuous of everybody, and that would of course include their own children because of the absence of emotional empathy. Not only does this impact upon the feelings of the child, it can well mean that the child understands that contempt is a useful way of controlling people, and this behaviour will be replicated unconsciously where lesser or mid-range narcissist, or consciously where greater narcissist, as a consequence of that child becoming a narcissist. If the child does not become a narcissist, the contempt that they have been exposed to results in diminished self-worth, diminished self-confidence, which manifests in their adult life. Number 9. The child's needs are not met. This can range from a whole plethora of instances such as not being fed, not given emotional support, not properly educated, not kept clean and protected from illness, not treated when suffering physical injury, not kept away from other individuals that might do harm for the child, and as a consequence of the child's needs not being met, results in damage of either a physical, psychological, or emotional nature to that child. Number 10. Physical, sexual, or emotional abuse. I do not need to detail the various ways that this can be occasioned, but this is a common impact of a parental narcissist. With no boundary recognition, no sense of accountability, a sense of entitlement to treat the child as an object that is to be admonished, broken, beaten, abused, and, of course, a wholesale lack of emotional empathy, the narcissist metes out these various abuses against the child, all for the purpose of control and obtaining fuel. 11. The child becomes a sponge for the problems of the adult. To an extent, this is an adjunct of parenting the parent. But more specifically, this is where the narcissist, and they are often mid-range narcissists, complain all of the time about their hand that they've been dealt, the utilization of pity plays, moaning about what has happened to them, how they're treated unfairly, that the world is against them, that the universe has cursed them. And rather than suck up and deal with the problems in the way that an adult would do so, their lack of empathy means that they dump their own problems on the child, either expecting the child to do something to solve them, or more usually, the child is treated to being a sounding board and is exposed to all of the trials and tribulations, either real or imagined, of the mid-range narcissist, thus meaning that the child becomes a sponge for these outpourings. This creates fear in the child and anxiety. They are exposed to adult matters at a very vulnerable age. And rather than protect and shield the child from the adult world, the selfish and uncaring mid-range narcissist in particular, with an absence of emotional empathy, sees no problem because of a sense of entitlement, the need to control, the absence of emotional empathy, and a lack of boundary recognition, in dumping their own trials, tribulations, problems, and aches and moans on that child. 12. The child knows the cost of everything and the value of nothing. This is where the child is impacted upon in a gilded environment. The child wants for nothing, is given everything at the drop of a hat, is treated like a prince or princess, spoiled, mollycoddled, and therefore never learns the value of anything, is not encouraged to strive for anything, doesn't have to compete for anything, and therefore this results in a warped worldview upon entering adulthood. It engenders a sense of entitlement, a grandiosity, and a lack of interaction with individuals, an expectation through this sense of entitlement that everything should come to the individual, and of course is evidenced in the creation of the narcissist. 13. The child sees competition in everything. This is particularly the case where a narcissist has more than one child. One will be a scapegoat, and there will be a golden child. Sometimes the golden element is outside of the family unit, a cousin or a friend of the child, or a child of a friend of the narcissist, for example. But commonly, the children of the narcissist, because of the objectification and lack of emotional empathy and the need for control, are treated in a way whereby they are made to compete with one another, to compete for resources. It might be as simple as competing in order to gain the supposed love of the parent, or being fed. Either way, competition is bred, engendering selfishness, or a feeling of helplessness, which manifests in particular behaviours as an adult. 14. The child becomes a people pleaser, owing to the need to always placate and accommodate the adult. Again, acting through a sense of entitlement and absence of emotional empathy and no boundary recognition, the ogre-like behaviour of a parental narcissist means that the child is always having to compromise, retreat, hide, mollycoddle, placate, cater to, and adjust to the mood swings, the black and white thinking of the adult. There is no stability for this child, no stable environment. It is always the shifting sands. And while some children might deal with the matter by retreating or seeking the protection of another adult if one is available, some children, the impact upon them is that they overcompensate by doing their level best to calm down, to appease, mollycoddle, placate the parental narcissist to varying degrees of success. And this engenders in them a need to become a people pleaser as an adult. And this is often where codependency comes from, that the child ends up pouring themselves into the empty hole of the parental narcissist and only feels that they matter when they are dealing with that particular narcissist, that they gain, although they don't realize this consciously as a child, that they gain importance, because it is only when they do something for that parent that they are acknowledged or recognized. And therefore, this creates codependency, because the child turns into that type of empath whereby the existence of the narcissist allows them to feel like they matter. Finally, number 15, nothing is good enough. No matter what the child does, they ought to jump higher, swim faster, score more goals, and get a greater result in their examinations. They receive limited praise or no praise, always pointed out how somebody else has done better, triangulation, or just making the point that they are expected to do better. Done under the auspices of what is in the child's interests, creates a sense of an inability to attain. This also is a form of a lack of control environment, the grade B environment, and results in the child being focused upon always trying to do what is often the unachievable, never recognizing contentment, never feeling secure or safe. The behaviours that have been mentioned and the outcomes with regard to numbers 3 through to 15 are items which can result in a manifestation of a narcissist or a particular type of empath. Sometimes the child becomes neither and is normal, but with particular issues appertaining to the way that they've been treated. But a child of a parental narcissist is more likely to either become a narcissist or an empath, and with those particular behaviours that are well explained in my other videos. There are, of course, other impacts that a parental narcissist has upon a child of minority age, but these are 15 of the most common and most impactful. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.